Showtime. Hello, Cosette. So, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. You're a life coach
I
who identifies yourself as the vibrant living coach.
correct.
Which I love that. So, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know you're a mom of three, a wife, a life coach, you have your own business. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So like you said, I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 3 young kids. I have a dog. That's been fun training it too.
Yeah. What dog do you have?
He's a standard poodle.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't do shedding. So that was my go-to.
All right.
So my background is actually in, the technical title was recreation management.
Okay.
But my work in college was all about helping youth develop through adolescence.
Okay.
And we did a lot of like outdoor experiences. So I would create and craft an experience to help them learn something, some life skill that would then help them later on in their life. And so I worked a lot with at-risk, I hate that term, but at-risk youth.
Okay.
And then I also worked a lot with even young children. We'd use sports. I specifically taught a soccer class to kids one time, teaching them resiliency.
Okay.
So resiliency is that like the bounce back, when people are just, they can bounce back from anything. They have this stick-to-itiveness, I guess, that pushes them through life. And we taught kids how to do that.
Okay.
And then as I became a mother, I kind of realized, like kind of in one of your Instagrams, you were talking about how mothers tend to think that once they become a mom, that they kind of die, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw that in myself, kind of like, wow, I'm kind of dead. Like,
Hello, anybody there?
right? I'm like, I feel like a shell. Like, what's going on?
Yes. Yes.
So, and then I kind of went back to my schooling and I was like, okay, wait a second. Like, I've missed something here. And then from that, I kind of was like, oh my gosh, I've forgotten everything that I learned. And I'm like hollowing myself out. So anyways.
So is that how you start to, because now you work mostly with women moms, most specifically. And what do you find to be the biggest struggles that that moms and women, let's talk about moms, because that would be more
okay.
obvious. So what do you find that there are the biggest struggles that moms go through, especially after they have kids?
Okay. So I think it's interesting because a lot of times they'll go through their struggles. Like they'll say that they have difficulty with getting their kids to sleep, or getting their kids to eat, or they'll have challenges in their marriage, or like they kind of talk about all these external challenges that they have. But what I find is it's actually an internal problem. So they have problems getting their kids to eat food or to eat their vegetables, because they're projecting their relationship with food onto their kids. And then their kids are kind of like, they kind of don't really get it. They're like, why should I be freaking out about this? So, it's really not you're struggling with the kid. It's that you have this internal problem that you're projecting on your child, or you're projecting on your spouse, that is creating this friction.
Can you be a bit more clear on like what do you that like the woman is projecting her problems in her child? Because I think that even when you say something like this, it almost sounds, please don't take this the wrong way, it almost sounds a bit like victim shaming, like
Yes.
that women already have enough guilt as is. So I think that
Yes.
it's a bit clear on what do you mean as projecting your struggles on your kids, so women don't feel like they're being once again blamed for something that is happening in their house.
For all the problems. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's absolutely not like, well, you're in control of all your kids and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely not. It's more of a, the issue arises because, for example, we feel like if my kids don't eat their vegetables, I'm a bad mother, right? So it's the messaging that we get from society, and then we're projecting that anxiety onto our kids. So they're like, oh my gosh, you have to eat your veggies, otherwise I'm a bad mom. Like the doctor's going to hate me, and all these people are going to say naughty things about me, and all my friends are going to think, oh, you're awful because my kid doesn't eat their carrots, right?
So let me see if I get this right. So basically, society has expectations for moms, and because moms are concerned, because that's just life. Like we're humans, and a lot of times we are in a society. So because we have that expectation that is created from us, from society, we try to get our kids to align with the norm.
Exactly. It's all because we're trying to push ourselves into what we think it means to be a good mom.
Okay.
And we're creating this anxiety or sometimes depression within ourselves because we can't fit that mold. And what I do is I help moms break that mold and just be who they are. Because when you're okay with who you are and you're like, look, my kid doesn't like it, that's okay. Like, it's all right. One day they'll figure it out. And the amazing thing is, like, I mean, going back to the food example, like most kids, like young kids, don't intuitively eat their vegetables. Like
my son eats nuggets and French fries, and I used
right.
to always said, my child, it's only gonna eat organic, and it's and he came and then he was like, no, I'm not. And guess what? I have to feed the child nuggets because otherwise
right? Absolutely. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad mom. It just means your kid doesn't like it. So a lot of times, like for example, my kids, I've kind of taken this model with my kids, and they kind of don't just intuitively eat their vegetables. I mean, they taste weird, they have funny textures, they're hard, like they're kind of weird, honestly.
Yeah.
My oldest son, he's 6 now, and it's kind of crazy because I asked him the other day, I'm like, what's your favorite food? And he said broccoli.
You're like, wait, what?
Broccoli. Yeah. Because I didn't push it on him, right? I let him explore. I gave him the options, and he didn't eat broccoli forever. And now he wants it. Now he chooses it because I've given him the choice, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of the paradox, is that when we try and push it on our kids, they're going to fight it. But just allow it to happen, they're probably going to choose it anyway.
Yeah, it's almost like you just have to create boundaries on one side or the other, and like the boundaries that you find acceptable, and whatever happens in between that boundaries, it's still within what you have found to be acceptable for
absolutely
your dynamic and for your life.
Absolutely, yeah, you nailed it. In fact, that's a theory that we used back in school when working with youth, was you set your boundaries. You have your absolute box lines that they cannot cross, but everywhere else has to be okay.
Yeah.
Even if it's right next to the line, it's okay because they haven't crossed it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that even educating kids is a bit like that too. You have to learn how to just let go of some things, because otherwise you legit gonna drive yourself insane.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to my next question, which we even talked about this before in our chat, is that a lot of women, they tend to make themselves a little bit of a martyr, and like, oh, I cannot do this because it's selfish. If I do this, I cannot, I don't know, go get my nails done, because if I go get my nails done and God forbid I leave my child with dad, oh, what a horror. Yeah. So and I think because in this, I'm gonna say as a coach and as a mom, because I remember when I had my son, my mom used to say that I was an abuser because I would let my husband look after his own child.
That's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, so I could get my own done. So
yeah.
What is your approach when it comes to this mindset that a lot of women are made believe that that they do for just themselves, it's wrong and it's selfish?
So one thing that I work on is we work on a lot of that mindset. Like, what does it mean to be selfish, right? Like, we kind of go back and say, selfish means what exactly? Like, define that for me. And it's kind of interesting because different people will define it in different ways. But essentially it does come down to well, I can't choose to do anything for me, right? The irony of that is when you're choosing to not do anything to take care of yourself, your body and your mind are going to inherently fight it. And so then you're going to start doing things like yelling at your kids. And you're going to start doing things like getting in fights with your husband. You're going to start, because you have so much pent up energy and you have no release for that, you're going to start getting it more anxious, more depressed. You're going to get in more fights. You're going to be more angry. And the irony is, if I always tell those people, like, okay, you say this is selfish, but the next time you yell at your kids, I want you to pay attention to what word you say the most. And it is usually I can't handle this. You are so frustrating. What am I going to do with you? Right? So it's like, that's selfish. You're worried about what you're going to do, right? I can't handle this. So I'm like, you're so worried about being selfless and taking a few minutes to take care of yourself. And yet, when you can't control anything, you're being selfless. Like,
yeah.
Oh, like, or selfish, excuse me. You're being so selfish because you're not giving the most of yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, as a mother, it is to give of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And you're being selfish if you're debasing yourself to a level where you can't actually give anymore.
Yeah.
So
and it's funny because I was doing an interview with a lady who has 6 kids. She went to med school with 4 kids, basically by herself. Her husband traveled. She got pregnant with the 5th kid halfway through. Anyway, and she made a very valid point that I think aligns with a lot of that you were saying. She was like, if you don't do anything for you, you have nothing to give.
Absolutely. You cannot give from an empty cup. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And I think it's interesting because if you look at like an analogy of a cup or a pitcher, right? Like, we'll use my water bottle. So like you have a water bottle, right? You fill it up. A lot of us as women, we try and do this like, oh, look, I've got water in here, let me give, right? And we'll start pouring it out. And we pour until it's gone. And then we're frustrated and we're upset and we're overwhelmed and we're fatigued and we just can't handle life anymore. But the irony of it is, if we would just let it fill up, it would just spill over, right? So I'm like, that's kind of what we work on, is just fill it up, let it spill over, and then you're giving more to your kids than you ever would with this one cup dumping it out, right? Like,
yeah, I love this analogy. And it really resonates with me a lot, because I noticed that for a very long time when I was trying to just give, I started to resent everybody. I resented my husband. I resented my kids, and I was being a horrible parent, and even a worse wife. So I was like, you know what? Doing something for me actually makes me a more tolerable person.
Yes, you're more fun to be around.
Yeah, I'm not a fun and like in my case, and for a lot of people watching this, would be exercising. That would be the main outlet, and I feel like there is still a big taboo, especially when it comes to exercising, that people only put exercising as a vanity thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're just exercising because you want to look a certain way. I'm like, no, I want to exercise so I don't punch people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something I realized in myself too. Like, we kind of going back to the mindset thing, culture tells us that in order to be valuable or desirable, we have to have a certain body, right? Especially as women. That's why so many women struggle with their postpartum bodies, is because it doesn't fit this mold of desirable, worthy woman, right? And, a lot of times they'll go, oh, I'm just lazy, or I don't have time to exercise, or, all these things kind of putting to, I'm just lazy, right? Or I don't have time, I'm too busy. But really what it comes down to is that they're worried that they're not valuable enough. And it's like, if I don't have a body, then I'm not valuable, right? And so then they'll come to someone like you and just say, well, you're just vain. Like, you don't know how to give to your kids. And, because it really comes from a state of jealousy, really, of just someone who is making the time. It's not like it's just given to you, right? Like, oh, here's some time, go to the gym, here you go, right? Yeah. But someone who is taking the time to care for their bodies And it kind of comes from this like, well, you must be a bad mom then because, you know, you're taking that time and you're clearly not giving enough, right? You're not sacrificing enough. Just learn to sacrifice, would you?
Yes, and that's oh, this spoke to my soul right there. And I think that it is like, why is it the image and the idea that moms, especially moms, have to be sacrificing all the time? Like, it is okay to look at your kids and be like, listen, I love you, but I also love working, and I also love going to the gym, and I also love getting my nails done. You can love all those things and still be a good mom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think, and that's kind of where we put ourselves in what I call martyr syndrome. You know, we kind of say, I can't have all these things because then I'm not a good mother, right? We strip ourselves of everything except motherhood.
Yes.
And it's so funny. It's like, but then it's like, but you look at your husband and it's like, well, he's not just father, right? He's also an employee, or also, you know, whatever it is that he does. My husband's a basketball player. So it's like, he works, he's a basketball player, he's a father, like he has all these titles. And I'm like, so why does that make sense that we can only be mother? Like, that doesn't, people.
Oh, girl, you speak.
No.
So you are, because like this is this, and these like speaks to me, because one of the patterns that I see, and which also brings me to the next question, is that a lot of women are like, oh, because my husband goes to his football once a week, or he goes and plays whatever the hell it is that their interest that their husband have, and but the woman doesn't have any interest, and she resents her partner for actually doing something which a lot of times the partner is not stopping the woman from doing. She's stopping herself. So what do you think it is the importance of having other interests other than your marriage and your kids? What do you think it is the importance other than just having an activity?
I mean, it's essentially vital to just being human. You know, I think a lot of times, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. I think something a lot of moms struggle with is finding mom friends, right? We have a really, really hard time finding a friend that after we have kids, right? Because somebody always gets sick. You have a hard time hanging out with anybody, right? And the funny part of that is like, it's also hard to connect with people when they're essentially a brick wall. Like, you know, they've stripped themselves of everything except their spouse and their children. And then I'm like, I didn't want to get to know your spouse and your children. I want to know you. But if they don't have these interests outside, you can't get to know them. So I'm like, well, I can't be friends with you because I don't even know who you are. Like,
Yes.
Sorry. Like,
Yeah.
And it makes it hard to make friends, you know? Like, I talked to some of my friends recently because there's a lot of moms in my area specifically that just, like, I'm not kidding. It's like talking to an empty shell or to a brick wall. I'm just like, I can't connect with you.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to talk more about my kids or your kids. And I also don't want to talk about your husband. So I can't connect with you.
It is so funny because I don't know what your sense is, and I think it's great, women who like it, but it's just not for me. The whole mommy and baby group kind of classes and stuff that they kill me. I tried. I promise I tried, but it just wasn't my jam. And then for a very long time, I just was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I even questioned whether I was am I even a good mom? Because everybody's saying how much they love. Oh, it's so great. It, for me, was watching like paint dry. Because
yes.
that I noticed with even like just the people that I had encounters with is that there wasn't anything else. It was just kids and my birth story. Great, that's amazing. But what?
Can we talk about something else?
If we go for dinner, what is it like? You're gonna be telling me about your 3 tears that you had in your vagina. Like,
That's great, honey, but
Yeah, no, I don't want to see it. Thank you.
all right. Please don't share.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting, like we work a lot with that is like women do kind of have this innate, like, oh, what if I don't fit this? I love my mommy groups. I love my home birth, whatever majigger, and I feed my kids organic food and I just love it, that they're like bad moms, right?
Yeah.
Like, some people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody loves cooking and feeding their kids these cute little polar bear, giraffe, whatever jiggers that they created, I don't get it. That's great. It's cute. It's adorable. But if it's not you, don't do it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to make food like that to be a good mom, right? You don't have to be obsessed with it to be a good mom. Like,
yeah.
When I chose to be a stay-at-home mom, it was like, well, what do I do with my extra time? Like, okay, I'll try crocheting. I'll try paper crafting, right? And I was kind of the same way. Like, this doesn't light me up. Like, am I a bad mom because I don't enjoy making my kids clothes? Like, am I a bad mom because I don't enjoy crocheting them little hats and blankets? Like, and, and that's kind of the thing where I kind of went back and I like coached myself. No, you're not a bad mom. It just means you don't enjoy that. So don't.
Yeah.
Anything else.
It's funny because even talking a little bit about this, it brings me back personally to, and this is something that I have been coming across with a lot of moms. It's the whole, like with breastfeeding, I think it is great. And I understand that a lot of women have a lot of fantastic experiences with breastfeeding. I personally didn't enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I had that internal conflict that it is the right thing to do. And it was affecting my mental health and well-being. And there was that pressure from life that, oh no, you don't want to breastfeed your child. And I'm like, why is it not okay to say that you cannot stand it? That you miss having, call it selfish, call whatever it is. I miss having ownership of my tits, like, and of my body.
Right.
Like, yep. And I found that it was very hard for me to come to terms that I wasn't like a lot of the moms that I knew that loved it and they had this fantastic connection, and I didn't.
Yeah. And I think that's something like we work through too, is you have to understand who you are and what you value. So there are some women who absolutely value that, right? And so go and do it, right? And sometimes for those women, it will hurt when they're like, oh, I can't, like I don't produce enough or something, and it hurts them. And so you have to kind of work through what is it that you value and what do you not value. Because then it kind of comes down to, look, if you don't value that kind of experience, then let it go. Because what's going to happen is if you keep trying to force yourself to do it, you're just going to create an anxiety between you and your child. And so instead of being this warming, comfortable, loving experience, it's going to be one of anxiety and tension. And then it's going to kind of cause problems later on. So it's like, just let it go. You don't have to fit that I love breastfeeding and it's the best thing in the world to me, right? Like,
yeah, no, it wasn't my jam. It was.
Yeah. And that's the best part of the world we live in, is that you can feed your kids formula and they will live and they will be just fine.
Yeah, they'll survive. That's what I tell, like, even some of, as a coach, a lot of the girls come to me and they're like, I don't like this. And I'm like, listen, we know the benefits of it and that's fine. But ultimately, having a healthy, mentally healthy parent it's just as important, if not more. So I think you have to make a choice on what is more important to you as a mother. Is it your mental health and your well-being with your child, or breastfeeding? And then it is on them to make the choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of that like selfishness martyr syndrome comes in, because they're like, well, if I say I don't like this, then it's going to be taking those benefits away from my child. So that's such a selfish thing to do. So I have to push through it. Right. But it's so funny because I'm like, the whole point of that relationship is the closeness between mother and child. Right. So look, if you really don't like it and you really want that physical closeness, then take your shirt off and bottle feed. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. No, I'm 100%. And this kind of brings me a little bit also to moving on a bit to talk about relationship, because I know that you've been married for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
And having kids definitely takes a toll on a relationship. I think it is a point of make or break of a relationship, especially the more kids that you have, the less time you have to be a couple with your significant other. So how did you find that kids affected your marriage and people that you have worked with? And what is your advice to make the relationship work and to just be a couple still?
So this is, honestly, I could go on forever with this one, because it is such a vast topic, but it kind of really comes down to what happens in marriage, or what happens when you have kids, is that it puts pressure on that marriage, and the pressure is intended to take the marriage to levels that didn't exist before, right? The pressure is intended to help you grow, because you will not grow without pressure. So a lot of times people think, oh, we just shouldn't have kids because it will ruin our marriage, right? But the problem is the pressure of actually having kids will improve your marriage, because you can't get that pressure anywhere else. But the challenge is to use that pressure in a good way as opposed to break it way, right? So there is that pressure. It will really push you to say, do you really love this person? Because there's differences in parenting styles, differences in opinions about what your kids should eat. There's differences in opinions about co-sleep or don't co-sleep, like there's differences of opinions, and it's really about, can you really work through that and still be united at the end of it? Or are you going to let it create that resentment and split you apart, right? Because a real happy, intimate relationship cannot exist without some of that pressure, right? Because it has to be something that, it's a choice. I choose you as a person, and I see you, and a lot of times after kids, it kind of brings out, this is a kind of a bad word, but I can't think of a better one. Like, it brings out the ugliness.
Oh yeah.
And it just, you start to see your own ugliness. You start to see the ugliness of your spouse. And the challenge at that point is to say, yes, I see you. I know, but I'm still going to choose you.
Yeah. And I think because you were really tested, it is no wonder that sleep deprivation and kids crying is used as a tool of torture, because it is a tool of torture. And so I think that whenever you combine the newness of parenthood and the newness of not just being able to go to sleep whenever the hell you want to, and like having something depending on you 24/7, I think that it's gonna bring the ugly of everybody.
Oh yeah.
And of your spouse. But here's the thing, it's not even on the script, but it just came to my head. What I noticed as well, again, women's in the martyr thing, to not and I was talking with my husband about that the other day, actually. They're not asking for help. They're not even men a bit are slow. Sorry if there are any men watching this, but you guys we're working at a slower speed up here. So you sometimes have to be very direct on in specific in what you expect. And I noticed that women sometimes don't have the patience to explain what they want and their expectations, and they take on all the load with the child.
Yes. And I think that's something that I see a lot. We have a lot of women who say, yeah, my husband works 60 to 70-hour weeks. I basically am a single parent. And I'm just like, that's not how it's meant to be, right? Like, it's not a medal of valor to say, I was a single mom and I did this all by myself. Like, that doesn't make you strong. It kind of makes you stupid. Like,
yeah.
And I apologize for the bluntness, but it's just, that doesn't make you strong. To have this idea of, I have to do this all by myself, it's not strength. And that is definitely part of that martyr syndrome kind of thing. Like, we kind of have this mentality of, if I have to ask for help, then I'm not being selfless and I'm not being a good mom and I'm just an awful person and blah, 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 blah. And we talk ourselves out of actually getting the help that we need to live the life that we want.
Yeah.
No,
and I am 100% with you because this is funny. Sorry for bringing, because it is such a close experience to me that I was talking to somebody the other day, and the lady was telling me how she's finding challenging the sleep deprivation, and she's sleeping on a sofa on the couch so her husband can have a full night of sleep. I'm like, hold on a second. And this is even like, and I understand that different scenarios work for different families, and I completely understand that. But like, whenever my husband even suggested that, he only suggested once, and that was gone out of the window real quick. I was like, I didn't make these people by myself. Like, obviously, if he had a job that people's lives depended on him, like if he was a surgeon or a bus driver or something like that, okay. But
like, okay, you get a call, you have to save somebody's life. Okay, like,
yeah, you might get away with it. But
yeah,
I just find that motherhood is already so lonely that whenever you're waking up at night and seeing yourself alone over and over again, I think that loneliness just grows. My husband doesn't understand how important his presence with his useless nipples there was important to me. And I don't think many women are willing to ask for the help when it comes to this kind of stuff.
yeah, and it's definitely part of that, like, this internal, well, am I a good person if I have to ask for help? Like, and it's absolutely wrong. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And like you said, it's not like you made them yourself. Oh, hey, I want to have a baby. Let's go pop one out. Here we go. Right? Like,
yeah.
Go here. And the same with parenting. It takes two. Like, you have to have both parents. And that's the interesting thing is like for me, and I kind of did that initially too. My husband was in school and I was just a stay-at-home mom. And so I was like, well, like, he needs the brain power so he can make it through his studies and finish his tests and stuff like that. And so I kind of took it on myself primarily. But even then, I'm like, I still recognized when I was like, I'm about to throttle you. Like, help so that I don't hurt you, right? And so, like, luckily at the time, my mom was nearby, and so I'd say, hey, Mom, can you come sit with my kid, right? But it wasn't until later where I realized, I was like, why am I still doing this? Like, it kind of habitually became like, oh, well, you have this responsibility and you need to be alert and attentive. So I'm just going to get up with the kid. But then I was like, but I have a responsibility too. Like, my responsibility is to be present with the kids during the day and to teach them and to be an example for them. And I can't do that if I'm completely exhausted either. So it's just one of those, then you just work it out. And honestly, now my husband's better at getting it than I am.
Oh no, I am 100% with you, and that's actually when my mom, like another time, my mom said that I'm like a husband abuser because I asked my husband to look after the kids so I could get my nails done, which is something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I just think and I think it is a lot to do with the old school mentality as well. And it brings like couples, a lot of times they come from different backgrounds, and I think that can play a big influence as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of women that I work with that have either their mothers or their mother-in-laws that kind of share that messaging with them. Like, oh, you're an awful mom, or you're so horrible, or look at you being abusive and neglectful, right, to your kids because you're asking your spouse to do something, or they just don't like your parenting style. And so sometimes, like, honestly, moms can be so mean to each other.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Attacking other people for their choices. And really what I work with, like, as moms is like, you know what? It's not a you problem, it's a them. They're having a hard time with your life, right? Like, they don't like your life. There's something about it that they don't like. And so they're having a hard time with it. So that comes out in attacking you and your parenting style. And yeah, but you have to understand, like, their opinion doesn't matter. For those of us who are Christian, I'm like, it's between you and God anyway. Like, That's what they say. And, you know, if you're not Christian, then it doesn't matter anyway. Like,
Yeah, no,
you're not responsible to your mother or mother-in-law for how you raise your kids, right? Like, that's
yeah.
not.
I sometimes joke whenever I see one of my friends having like some type of problems with their mother-in-laws and stuff like that. I joke and I'm like, listen, you're living with one of the things they have created, and that was a questionable job. just so we're like here, I know there probably are going to be some single parents watching. I think a lot of these things obviously will not necessarily apply to them, because it's not that they're not asking for help because they don't want to, it's because they don't have. So just so we're not
Yes,
sounding patronizing with something that they don't even have.
yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like, single parents, that's a tough job. Honestly, you don't have that inherent support in your home.
Yeah.
And it's not that you don't need help. Like, it would be great to just have a night off, right? If you're a single parent, but you have to have the money to pay someone else to do it, or, you know, hopefully you have a mom friend who's willing to just take your kids for a few hours or something. But it's still important to ask for help, but it is a very different dynamic when you're a single parent.
Oh no, like since becoming a parent, my mom was a single parent, and since becoming a parent myself, I have had the most utmost respect for single parents, because
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be able to do it.
Yeah, honestly, there was, I mean, when your husband, maybe you can think about this, like, when your husband goes away for a time and it's like you're parenting by yourself, I'm like, yeah, it might be kind of fun for a couple days, but then it's like, okay, like, this is too much, you know. And just like, you know, I have some relatives who have spouses in the military, and they'll go on deployments for like a year. And so they're single parents for a year, you know. And I think, especially like anyone listening that is not a single parent but knows someone who is, like, reach out and offer to watch their kids.
Yeah.
Just offer a helping hand, because that's a hard stage for sure. For sure.
But back to marriage here. What would be your advice to keep the marriage alive when you have kids and basically have no time to talk to your spouse or do anything, or even like even if you have a problem within a marriage, it's hard to find the time to have a discussion about that issue, because you're always like little people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My number one thing is set boundaries. So set boundaries. There have to be times when you're just like, you're going to be okay, and mommy and daddy need a minute. You're going to be fine. You know, I'm like, even from the time like they're newborns, like, they're going to sleep at some point, right? So utilize that time. Even if you have to hold the baby and it's sleeping, utilize the time that you do get, you know. There's, like, for my kids, I tell them, I'm like, between the hours of 7 p.m. and 6:30 or 7 a.m., I am not mom. Like, I don't mother, right? Like,
I don't matter.
I just don't. I'm like, nope, you're on your own. Like, if you're awake, there's a toy room over there, go play in it. Like, you know, and my kids are young. They're 6 and under. So, but it is definitely like, you'll be fine for a little bit. You're not going to die. Like, here's a safe space. Go play. And we're going to have a conversation, right? So setting boundaries is absolutely vital. Because if you're constantly worried about your kids, or you're constantly in a state of I need to parent, it's really, really hard to connect with your spouse.
Yeah.
The dinner table may not be the best place for that, because your kids need to be able to participate.
Yeah.
But having a set space, you know, even if it's like, okay, after dinner, we're going to go sit down and drink something, you know, whether it's coffee or tea or something. We're going to sit down with one glass and we're going to drink it, and you kids are going to play in the backyard, play in a toy room, something, so that we can have a moment to connect with ourselves in our relationship. You know, it doesn't have to be when the kids are asleep, but you absolutely have to set boundaries. Mm-hmm. Kids know that the marriage is also important, because you are going to set the example of a marriage to your kids. Mm-hmm. If they don't see that you're making time for your marriage and for each other, then they may not expect that when they become teenagers and entering the dating realm, and then that gets kind of scary.
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree with that. But even as you're saying, like, even for me, it is a bit challenging because my kids don't understand. So it's
Yeah, they're younger.
yeah, they're like two and a half and 1.5. So I cannot even tell them like stay there because they just scream.
Yeah.
So, but we try to make the time to have like a conversation and talk about life
Yeah.
after they go to bed or something like that, because otherwise you end up not knowing the person you're married to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you can do is a date. Like, find some way, find a babysitter, find a kid swap, something or other. Find some way to go on a date. I'm like, even if it's just going on a walk because you don't have money for dinner, like, that's fine. Like, some of my favorite conversations with my husband have been going on walks.
Yeah.
And, just find somebody to watch the kids and go for a walk, reconnect, reignite, and then come back. Like,
me and my husband, we have a thing that is called and it's funny that we're talking about this because just recently I posted on my Instagram about going on a date is an investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment in your relationship. And we go to secret date nights, and by all means, it's not that we are like swimming in money and we have bucket loads of money, but I do think that like you can cut the Starbucks coffee that you have, you can cut something else, like nails done for once. There is somewhere that you can cut. You have the funds to pay for the extra cost that it is to have a babysitter, but it is important. We have a date night once a month. Would I like it to be more? Yes, but right now that's all we can get.
Yeah, you do what you can. Absolutely. Like, we found it. So we've lived away from both of our parents and away from all family a couple times. And we kind of just got into this groove of we'll do 2 or 3 at-home dates, and then 1 out-of-the-house date where we'll hire a babysitter. 1 to 2 out-of-the-house dates, depending on how much income we have that month and how much we can find a way to spare. But, it really comes down to, you can do it at home too. Like, you can have, even if you're tired, you can amp up a little cute movie night, or there's a lot of things you can do at home to just reconnect after the kids go to bed. I'm like, even if it's late and you're like, look, 30 minutes, anything to reconnect for sure. And it doesn't have to be out. You could do something else, but yeah.
No, I totally agree. And which also leads me to, like, this is the last question, but I think that it kind of puts the icing on the cake when we talk about kids and marriage, is like, because I noticed that a lot of women lose a bit of themselves whenever they become a mom. Like that, talk a little bit the importance about saying, like, keeping you. Obviously, your you is gonna evolve, and your you after you have kids and after you get married is not going to be the exact same that your husband met, but there is something there that needs to stay. Like the core of you has to stay. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of being yourself and keeping the core you to keep the relationship alive and to not be lost?
Yeah. So it really kind of comes down to, like, who you are as a person. A lot of times as parents, we'll read these books, right? So usually about the time you're going to bring a second child into your home, you'll read this book about how mommy's love can expand and have 2 kids instead of just the 1, right? Not all moms do it, but it's kind of just this idea you're trying to warm up your kid to the idea that mommy can love more than 1 child, and that doesn't mean she loves you any less, right? But a lot of times we don't take that into ourselves either. Like, I can still be me and just add children to who I am, right? I'm just adding. I'm not taking away, I'm adding, right? And we forget that. We forget, and we kind of tell ourselves, well, I need to get rid of myself to make room for these children, right? And the problem with that is it really, really kind of messes up your relationship. Kind of like we talked about earlier, like trying to make mom friends with someone who does that is like, I can't connect with you, right? And your spouse can't connect with you either unless they're talking about your kids. Like, you cannot connect with another person by talking about other people. Like, that just doesn't work. Like, yeah, you may have this love for these 2 other people in your house, but that doesn't mean that you two are actually connecting. You're just connecting with your children, right? So it's absolutely, absolutely vital. And a lot of times you'll see moms that don't have that connection. A lot of times it's kind of manifested in intimacy.
Yes.
You know, how you are in the bedroom. And I'm like, if you don't know who you are, there's absolutely no way you're going to have passion in the bedroom. You're probably just going to start getting resentful. You're going to stop, your libido is going to get low. You're going to have like, you're going to kind of hate it eventually.
Yeah.
That resentment, you know, and who, there was some, I don't remember her name off the top of my head. But she is a relationship psychologist, I believe.
Uh-huh.
She wrote an article about how resentment is like the most toxic emotion within a marriage relationship or any relationship. Like resentment is toxic.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who you are, you're going to automatically be putting resentment between you and your spouse, you know, because it's kind of this like, well, you know who you are. You have your titles of football player and whatever they may be, right? So you have a being, a person, and I don't. So that automatically builds the resentment between you two. And that's absolutely no way to have a strong marriage relationship at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree with you. Because, and I think it is important to talk about it as well. Like, because like I would be a bit of a talker. Like I like to discuss my relationship with my husband, and he's so it's like me talking about the relationship by myself a bit. But he does soak in, and he does take in the information. But I noticed that when I was pregnant with my son, it was even before I became a parent, I was like, who am I? And I started to resent my husband because I was there, like massive, big, and I couldn't go. I couldn't like get annoyed at him and go on a girls' night out because I couldn't have a drink. And and he was still there with like his six pack and his life carried on as he was.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't. He was like, but I'm not doing anything. I'm like, you're, but you. That's exactly what I mean. You are, like you still have your life in your being, and nothing has changed. And for me, everything has changed. So I had to do that and try to make him understand that my problem was that I was a bit confused on who I was.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and every woman will hit that at every stage. You know, for some it's the pregnancy because they're like, I can't do these things anymore.
Yeah.
Or after they have kids, or even when their kids are older, it's just kind of like, you know, I've lost myself because I've had to adjust the way that I do things to include the kids. And it is kind of hard because you absolutely have to find something. And it's not that like your passions can change. Like, for example, I used to run a lot.
Okay.
Like my morning thing before I had my first son. And after I got pregnant with him, like, of course, you can't run. I mean, some people can run, but I was not one of them because it hurt so bad. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, this hurts.
Yeah.
So I was running, and then, you know, obviously I couldn't run right after birth either. And it was kind of this coming to myself after when I was like, hey, I'm healed and I'm better, but I still can't run because it messed up. It reinstated an injury from high school that like messed up my hips. And so every time I'd run, I'd have to like go to the chiropractor immediately.
Yeah.
So this isn't worth it. Like,
Yeah.
so, you know, like there are things that are going to change. There are things that will change. And that's part of why it's so difficult sometimes to love your postpartum body. Because of those changes, and you kind of see it as this was taken from me, right? This love of mine was stripped from me, and now who am I, right? And it's interesting.
My husband, he's there, he's fine, nothing has changed.
I know, like rude.
Yeah.
Or even like when you're pregnant and you have cravings or food aversions, and you're just like, I can't eat like I used to, right? You're like, all I want to eat is pickles and ice cream. That's disgusting. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yes.
You know? And it kind of does mess with you just a little bit. Like, who am I? You know? And I think that's why it's important. Like, some of the work that I do is I help women identify their core values, their core motivators, kind of just the core, the inner part of who you are, right? So that if you know that some of your core motivations and your core values are a certain way, that you can just readjust the things that you're doing so that you're still you're just doing it a different way, you know? So yeah, you may absolutely love exercise, and that may be valuable. Your physical health may be a core value for you. But sometimes during pregnancy, some things will happen and you may not be able to exercise in the same capacity, right? But knowing that your value is in your physical and mental health, there's like, okay, let's find a different way to do this so you can still be you. It's just a little different in the way that it manifests.
Yeah, girl, I 100% agree with you with everything you're saying. And I think this conversation has been very eye-opening, even for me as well, to think about that and be like, and I know everybody that is listening and watching this is gonna, especially when you talk about core values, to kind of like refresh your mind about who you are. Like, who am I? If I could pick, like, I don't know how many core values you ask your people to pick, but let's say like 3, and try to stick to that and work around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the things we delve into that, because some moms, depending on how long it's been, really, really have a hard time connecting with that. And it's not that they don't have values. It's just that they've been a martyr for so long that they don't remember. And so sometimes it takes a little bit more like, okay, let's go back, let's figure these out. Because once you know who they are or what they are, what your values are, it makes life so much easier. You know, if your decisions don't take so long to make, you don't have to like, should I do this? Should I not do this? I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
it's not that hard. If you just know what your values are and what your motivators are, then you're like, man, that's not going to make me feel happy, so I'm not going to do that. Like,
yep, I love it. Cosette, thank you so much for your time. Can you tell everybody where they can find you? Where would be the best spot to be like, oh, I liked what she said and I want to keep up with it?
So right now I'm building my new website right now. So the best spot is on Instagram, and it's at One Colorful Mom.
One
Colorful Mom.
Colorful Mom. Oh, okay. Well, I'll put it in I'll put a link on the comments area in the bottom, and so everybody can go and check it out. This conversation has been amazing, very insightful, very eye-opening, and I think very relatable to a lot of moms, because it is good to know that you are not the only one going through these problems and stuff like that. So thank you very much for your time and for clarifying and making things easier to understand.
You're welcome. I just hope that it helps some moms out there find themselves again. You know?
Thank you.